Hello, my beautiful lovelies. Hi, it's Emmy. Welcome back to another gadget test. Today I'm going to be testing this brightly colored object. This is the Mac and Cheese Nation mac and cheese maker, as in macaroni and cheese. So right off the bat, I'm not really sure why you would need one of these, but I found it at Savers for $4, so I really couldn't pass it up. So like most of these kind of unitasker things, I'm very skeptical about the efficacy of this item. I already see some design flaws. This looks like a very small opening, and this lid is difficult to take off. So just so I have a little bit of frame of reference and for some comparison, I'm also going to be cooking a box of mac and cheese in a traditional saucepan, just so I can compare cooking times and such. Oh yes, another thing, I'm not a huge mac and cheese fan, so I'm not really going to be taste testing the mac and cheese per se, because I don't really like mac and cheese. I just want to know how well this thing cooks. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I found this at Savers. I paid $3.99 for it. I believe it retails for more like $30. So I've already washed this off, but I did leave the sticker on because I wanted to show you where I got this. And here are the components. There's the heating unit at the bottom, there's the paddle, and it doesn't look like it comes apart. And there's a little opening here. There's also a fill line here. It says max, so you don't want the water to get above that point. It says 3 different settings: low, simmer, and boil. I'm going to set it on boil. And I'm going to put 3 cups of water, make sure it's below the max line, and bring it up to a boil. Simultaneously, I'm going to bring 3 cups of water to a boil in my saucepan. So I put that right here. Plug this doohickey in. Saucepan has 3 cups of water. Put that on high. Start that. And I'm going to put 3 cups of water into here. Immediately, I'm seeing bubbles appear. So the heating unit is working. All right, I just set my stopwatch. I'm going to see how long this takes to come up to a boil. This is already starting to heat up. All right, maybe this one will be the winner. Traditional pot, not the same activity. Look at this. This is kind of wobbly. Why is this wobbling? It's been 1 minute and 30 seconds. Do a little comparison here. This is an induction burner on high. Not nearly the same level of activity as that. Okay. When this water comes to a full rolling boil, I'm going to add my package of mac and cheese mix. All right. Can't they make these boxes open any easier? I mean, like they're like, press here, and I don't press here. I just do this, right? Do not demonstrate that in front of your children. Ugh. Right? Ugh. Then you pull it up. Ugh. Okay, so take the cheese packet out. All right, 2 minutes and 40 seconds. It's hard to take this lid off. All right, this is already at a boil. Gee, okay, this is super dangerous because this is hot. All right, holy smokes. Induction burner, not even at a simmer. Look at that, boom. Not even up to temp yet. I do have to say this is off-gassing a great deal. It smells like plastic. Great. You're not supposed to take this off. I just want to show you the state of the water. Now I'm supposed to open this spout and pour in my pasta. Okay, 1 entire package of pasta. Okay, we are at 3 minutes and 50 seconds, and the induction is now at a boil. So 1 minute slower. Turn this down to simmer. Add pasta. All right, so package says I should cook this for 7 minutes. Stir around so the pasta noodles don't stick. Okay. And reduce this heat a little bit to medium so it doesn't boil over. This, on the other hand, I'm just gonna crank it. So I reduced it to a simmer, so it killed the boil. I'm gonna turn it back to a boil. Get it to come back up. See, I wish I could show you, but I can't. Okay, now it rapidly came back up to the boil, so I'm going to turn this down to a simmer. And again, it still smells like plastic. Keep cranking it. It's steaming a bit above these vents, so that's a little bit uncomfortable. Oh, there's a problem. So you can't look at the noodles and stir at the same time, because this gets in the way, so it has to be closed. All right, and 44 seconds left. Keep turning this. Whoa! Did you see that? That's dangerous. We'll turn that down. So be careful of boiling over here. This wants to do that. The thermostat is very sensitive. When you just give it a fraction of a tiniest turn, it does reduce the temperature. I'm also predicting that testing doneness is going to be tricky. This lid does not come off very easily. There's no real handle, so in order to test a pasta, I'm going to have to grab one out with a chopstick or something, as opposed to this where I can just kind of grab one with a spatula. Okay. It's been 8 minutes. Let's check for doneness. Let me check the one in the pot first. Pot's done. And grab a noodle. Done. Okay, so both of them are cooked. Now I'm going to drain off the water. This is very simple. I'm just going to pour it through the lid. So that worked pretty well. Now let's drain the water out of the pot using the lid. That works equally well. Now we add a 1/4 cup of milk, 4 tablespoons of butter. Uh-oh, now my butter doesn't fit through the opening. Use a knife. Cut that in there. Now, while this is still hot, we're gonna melt this in here. Okay, crank this. Melt everything up here. Now we're gonna add our cheese powder. Cheese powder. Wow, look at that bright neon color. Amazing. Okay, stir this up. Stir this up. There's no on-off button to turn it off. I just unplugged it. Crank this in. Stir this up. Trying to get all that cheese to get mixed up in there. At this point, I've turned off the power for both of these. I don't want it to dry out. So the stovetop one looks pretty much done here. I'm going both directions to make sure this gets well incorporated. Let's take a view in there. Almost there. Let's keep stirring it. All right, let's see what this looks like inside. All right, let's plate these up and compare the two versions. This is the mac and cheese maker. This is the pot maker. Pot maker? Did I just say that? This is just a saucepan. Pretty uniform in consistency. Stovetop. Very uniform in consistency as well. They look pretty much identical. I had some concerns that the cheese powder would not get mixed in, but it actually mixed in quite well. I don't see any chunks of cheese powder in the mac and cheese that's made in the maker versus the one that was on the stovetop. Now let's see if there's a difference in taste. Let's try the mac and cheese maker first. Itadakimasu. Boy, I haven't had that in a long time. And that tastes like boxed mac and cheese. The cheese flavor tastes processed, kind of like nacho cheese sauce or American cheese slices that you put on a hamburger. The texture of the pasta is relatively soft. The walls of the pasta are relatively thin, but not overcooked. And it's squeaky, which is something that I remember from childhood. The pasta, when you bite it, when it's freshly made, squeaks against your teeth. So I'm still not a fan of mac and cheese, but I'm not really here to do a taste test. I'm just trying to compare two methods. Let's try the conventional. So it has the same exact shiny texture as the mac and cheese maker. Let's give it a taste. And in terms of doneness, it has the same texture, a little bit squeaky, relatively soft bite to the pasta. And in terms of sauciness, they're about the same. Neither one is wetter or drier than the other. And this too does not have any lumps of cheese sauce or anything. So it turns out these are pretty much exactly the same. There's no difference in taste, no difference in texture. In terms of time, I think the mac and cheese maker shaved 1 minute off in terms of the boiling time, but in the end, they came out to be done around the same time. I do have some concerns about washing this. I'll scrape this out, but I can't really submerge this whole thing in hot water. So final thoughts on the Mac and Cheese Nation mac and cheese maker. I would just skip it. This is not a very utilitarian cooker. You could cook other things in it, but with that paddle and such, it's kind of a bother. I would just stick with a pot, a spatula, and if you're worried about flames, perhaps get an induction burner. There are a little bit of an investment, although I found mine on clearance for about $25. I understand if you're in a dorm room or in a mobile home and you're kind of limited in terms of what kind of appliances you can use, you might want to look at something like this, but I think I would invest in a rice cooker or a hot pot before I would get something like this, because it is just so limiting with this kind of design. All right, so there you have it, the mac and cheese maker. I tested it so you didn't have to. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope you guys learned something. Please like this video so I know that you like these types of videos. Share this video with your friends because sharing is caring. Follow me on social media so you know what videos are coming up next. Subscribe so you can watch more of these kinds of videos. And I shall see you in my next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye! Mac and cheese juice all over my arms. How is that possible?